Hi, I'm John Roberts. I'm a board member with the Chehalis Valley Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here today with Will Worthey, City Manager for the City of Newberg. So Will was appointed City Manager in October of 2021, and since that time there's been a lot of changes, and so we're here today to talk about those changes.
I think an important thing for me to say before you lead off with questions is just for people to understand that we really were in a very terrible and a dark place before 2021. We were administratively in the past, everything was out of date, our policies were out of date, and our budget was in a structural deficit. So that's kind of the starting point that we began from.
Yeah, okay. So, Will, you've been city manager 3.5 years now. It's gone by quickly.
Very quickly, yes, and it's been a very, very busy time.
Yeah. I remember early on, one of the big changes was in the city's hiring practices. Can you talk a little bit about what prompted that and what some of those changes were?
Well, really, we didn't have a very good formal process in how we did hiring. I wasn't clear that things were going well for us, and in fact, in the papers you may have read that things were not always going well for us. So we decided that the best way to get the right candidates was to institute a uniform hiring policy, and that policy would have double-blind scoring for every candidate. So to get hired by the city, you have to achieve 70% score in a double-blind panel where the staff members go back and put the scores in the system, but they don't debate the candidate even once they leave the room. In other words, the good old boy network doesn't exist here.
Right, okay. That's worked out well, I presume.
I think we're getting really strong candidates these days.
That's great, that's great. Well, I've heard you speak frequently at local service groups and meetings, and I've always appreciated your transparency. And one of the things I've heard you mention several times is Strive. Can you elaborate on what Strive is?
Yeah, I guess probably I'll start with what it's not.
Okay.
So often there are management slogans or logos that somebody picked out of a book, and they decide that that's the values that should represent their organization, or in our case, the city. We didn't do that. The values that we've chosen to enshrine in many of our policies were hand curated by the department heads. They got to choose values that resonated with themselves, and we listed and collated that into one set. From that, we got our service, our teamwork, we got our integrity, a sense of respect, and a sense of value and equity. All of those things came from that original list. So R is for responsibility, for example. Right. That's where people have to take ownership over their own product and their own work. So it wasn't in a book, it wasn't in a manual, it was something that we derived organically, and we give people who join our organization an orientation. Do you have time for me to tell you a bit more about it?
Sure, absolutely.
So one of the key things about Strive is there's a Strive committee, and the Strive committee gives an award to any person that lives one of our values, such as integrity. The people on the Strive committee are the number 2 people in each department, not the number 1 person. And the leadership doesn't choose the winners. And the person gets an award of not just recognition, but they also get a free floating holiday, because a floating holiday is of value to everybody equally, no matter how much they get paid. But there's one more thing. Strive is also our ethics watchdog. They have the responsibility and duty to report any department head level, or myself, or the judge, or the police chief, if that person starts to do something that has questionable morality.
Right.
So it's a double function committee.
Okay, that's great. Well, another area of focus I'm aware of is the city's computer information systems.
Yes.
Can you talk about some of the improvements that have taken place there? I know there's been a lot.
So when I came in, we were doing timesheets on scraps of paper. Believe it or not, we're talking 2021, the end of 2021.
Yeah.
We had an out-of-date fiscal system. We had an out-of-date courts records management system. We have an out-of-date accounts payable system. all of that in short order, I think it was about a year and a half of work, was moved over to Tyler Technologies, a leading US vendor for these supplies. Now we have a fully integrated digital system for all of those functions, but also we have a SharePoint implementation for our general communications. We have a contracts and management layer built into SharePoint so that everybody knows where things live and what their expiry date is. Now everything we do is digital, and we've been working on getting rid of all of the legacy paper.
Okay. So old records, those have been digitized as well? Is that in the works?
About 65% of our paper has been digitized.
Okay.
And we're working towards getting it to almost 100%. Now there'll be a small legacy section of historical documents that we're never going to digitize.
Sure.
But the bulk of stuff, old AP records and accounts and emails and memos, all in minutes, all of that stuff is going to be completely digitized within a year and a half of right now. But we started off with the personnel records. Those were in a really bad condition.
Yeah.
And volunteers from all of our departments got together and came together to work on getting the personnel records fixed to help HR.
Wow.
And that was a very strive-worthy early win.
Yeah. So was that just a mass effort to scan all the documents and and categorize them, and that's...
One of the things we did to make that happen is we've set up optical character recognition on all of our photocopiers and programmed it, we call it OCR2, so it skips pages that don't have any information. So when you choose that setting, you can fan feed a whole bundle and it will scan everything that needs to be scanned and skip the white pages and optically character recognize them, and all at 400 DPI.
Wow.
Dots per square inch.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So you touched on the financial systems. What has been done with the financial systems for the city?
So the biggest thing there was the AP system, as I was describing. But in a practical sense, the difference between our current AP system and the old manual process is that anyone who works for the city now can go in and they can open a general ledger number. They can click that general ledger number and they can see what the encumbrance level, how much is set to be spent for any moment in time. And it gives them a more realistic real-time snapshot of where we are. That makes budgeting easier. And it also makes it easier for people to stay on track. Now, right at the very beginning, before we'd even finished building the AP system, we launched a thing called the BCR system, Budget Change Request Forms. In order to shift the city's budget even by one line item, a senior staff member has to consult with their team and fill out a BCR. The BCR has to justify why that ledger line must be moved upwards or preferably downwards.
Okay.
We take 7,000 hours to build our budget. Not many cities can say that. So we're analysing all of the BCRs, and the BCRs, once they're approved, get fed into the system. And I and the finance director both read every BCR, vet them for quality, approve them, and then implement them into the Tyler Technology AP system.
Okay. Wow. That's impressive. I noticed the city's website is new. What led to that change? Was that more about functionality or a new look or both?
So really, it's a bit of both, but I will say that the website was one of the 18 original deficiencies that we identified back in 2021. When I sat the leadership team down and I said, tell me everything that is wrong that we need to work on, because that's the very first meeting I had with them. And the website was one of those items. Then we scored to see what was the priority. And my leadership team felt that the website was a lower priority than I might have put it, but we eventually got round to that one. So there were two main reasons why we wanted to improve the website. First of all, we wanted the index and search functions to work really well. That means we can now add metadata to every page using natural language, and from that people can find the pages much more readily. The second thing is, John, that the previous system was not ADA compliant. So it wasn't able to be parsed by a screen reader, by someone who was blind or partially sighted. It wasn't effective. That's what prompted the change.
Okay, okay. So this question was not in there, but I'm gonna throw it in. AI, everyone's talking about AI these days. Have you been able to utilize AI into some of those changes that you're making?
I am moving slowly
Yeah,
and with extreme caution
yeah,
with regard to implementing AI at the city.
yeah,
We have an AI steering group that's considering an AI policy for now, and especially until the legal landscape shakes out.
yeah.
I want to wait and see.
Okay,
We will be bringing out a policy this year on
Yeah.
what level of AI implementation we're going to do.
okay,
And of course, we recognize that many of our staff can't avoid using AI because it's already embedded
Right.
in many of our platforms. But we're not doing that as a policy decision
Yeah.
yet.
yeah. About a year or so ago, I've lost track of the time, system development charges. I remember at one of the City Club meetings, I think, that I first heard you speak about the changes that were implemented there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'll talk about sort of why we did it, and then I'll talk about a couple of features.
Okay,
One of the things that may surprise people when they learn more about local government, or in fact other types of taxing districts, is that they may not own their own intellectual property in the realm of their system development charge data. That's charges that we charge developers so as to pay for infrastructure. Frequently local governments, and we were in the same boat at the beginning, they will have SDC data that was developed by an engineering firm, and it kind of runs on autopilot. So the rates increase based upon the CPI West or some other inflation number, but nobody's really looking at the system and how well it's doing. So I decided, despite the fact that it was going to be a horrible amount of work, to build an entirely new SDC model, create the workbooks in-house, quantify all of that system, and then we would own the system and be able to maintain it from then on, meaning that we could give developers and business owners a more honest answer if they asked me, where do these charges come from? And I am very comfortable with that.
yeah,
It was more work, but in 2026, we're going to redo the table again, and we're going to redo it every 2 years.
okay,
So our rates went down a bit. Now the water rate went up, but that's reflective of the stuff that we need to build.
right,
There are a couple of programs that came out of that which are very useful for the community, however. One is that childcare facilities, and I mean properly licensed childcare facilities, those don't pay any SDCs at all, because we really want to attract that kind of business here.
yeah,
We also offer steep discounts to home builders if they can build an efficiency unit of 1,000 square feet or less. And we're currently in negotiations with the Kalina development here to try to get some of those smaller units built in the second year.
yeah,
And that probably wouldn't be happening without those SDC table improvements that I've discussed.
okay. So you mentioned water. With the new development like Kalina, I mean, it's happening on 99. Is the water? What is the water situation and treatment facilities?
So at the moment we're tracking two things that we really need to think about. The water situation, to my surprise, is starting to look a little bit better than I thought it was.
Good.
So we're still going to need a water plant eventually, but despite 3 years of housing growth, I don't think we're going to hit the real crisis point until the later part of the 2030s.
Okay,
If the efficiencies from the new homes continue as we have seen. Now, if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I would have told you 32 or 33. But we're tracking the statistics on water production every month. Oh, and another thing, previous administrations in this city didn't track any statistics. So how could they possibly know what they were doing? When I got there and asked who's got the statistics, nobody had any. So that's how I can say my original pessimism on water is looking a little better than I thought.
yeah,
Of course, there are many other things that we still have to build, and we're looking at River Street as a road improvement. And we're also looking at if, how, and when we can build a new oxidation ditch, because we are going to have to do that eventually, and probably sooner than later on the oxidation ditch.
Okay.
That's part of the wastewater system.
Okay, thank you. Well, as a former building contractor and now as a local real estate broker, I understand the importance of processing building permits in a timely fashion. There's a new system, correct, to handle building permits. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so the new system is the OpenGov permit system. Now, I actually didn't expect this to happen. This wasn't on one of the deficiencies list that I referred to from 2021.
Okay.
But my hard-charging staff decided that the current permitting system that we had previously wasn't giving good enough customer service.
Okay.
So we've just literally rolled out, as well as all these other things, this wasn't on my list originally, a new permitting software system.
Okay.
The main advantage of that system is that it first of all has carefully considered workflows to reduce the number of touches that staff have to do on each permit.
Okay.
And secondly, it has a web drawer type capability so that people can go in themselves, self-service, and discover where the status is of their permit. We are currently turning around permits about 2 weeks faster than we were previously, not just as a result of the new software, but just as a result of Scott Siegel, who is our director in that department. He is a customer service champion. And I am so glad that we're able to hire that guy, because he takes that stuff seriously and he really works with people.
That's great. Switching gears a little bit, the Emergency Operation Plan. I know the City of Newberg has an EOP. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So most cities will have an EOP document. But the EOP document that I inherited, because this was one of the few things where we did have a document, was absolute garbage.
Okay.
It was a big fat binder full of highly specific scenario answers to each type of disaster or problem.
Okay.
In other words, if it wasn't the exact issue that was in the binder that was happening, this plan would have no response. And perhaps if you're familiar with the book, The Black Swan, so you never expect what the next disaster is going to be.
Right.
That approach to emergency operations planning was not what we wanted.
Okay.
So the new policy, which is about a quarter of the pages of the original, is a flexible matrix designed to think about what the situation, the mission, and the execution that might be required to deal with an emergency. Right. Be it a vehicle chemical spill, or be it, God forbid, an earthquake.
Yeah.
So that is a more responsive, a lighter document, and it's a document designed to build a plan on the fly rather than looking for that exact scenario in a big fat binder, which doesn't do anybody any good.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, we had to put it to the test with a building flood, so, but it proved its mettle.
Yeah.
So based upon the tenets of the emergency operations plan, the city was back up and running fully within 5 days of the flood at City Hall, even though we had to relocate departments like IT, and planning, building, and finance. They all had to be relocated to other buildings. But we designed the structure of our response based upon that plan.
Yeah, that's great. I've seen in my experience, having been on emergency action teams, the number one factor is communication. And that seems to be a lot of times where plans fail. It's like, it sounds like if the situation isn't exactly what you've trained for, if you don't have good communication, then that plan's gonna fail. So it sounds like perhaps communication is a big part of that.
Whenever we write a plan, and let's hope I don't have to write another one anytime soon, there's always an admin and logistics section, and there's always a command and control section.
Yeah.
And that's where we develop the communications that we need.
Yeah. Okay. There's been work to secure grants to help finance some of these changes. Is that correct? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we're currently pursuing several grants, but one that we know is going to land soon is we're getting money to cover part of the work we did on our PLC upgrade. Okay. So that's a congressional federal earmark to replace our programmable logic controllers. I have to say that carefully because it's a real tongue-tied twister there. The PLC system. So the PLC system operates the valves at the wastewater plant and mechanisms that allow the plant to be run remotely and to be monitored remotely to make sure that it's running 24/7.
Okay.
And we did get a congressional earmark for that. That's $500,000 to cover the cost of half of the $1 million that the PLC project actually needed. And the PLC project was just finished, was $50,000 under budget.
Wow.
And several of our capital projects have been under budget recently.
Good.
Like the Hess Creek project
Okay.
was massively under budget, hundreds of thousands of dollars actually. We also did the Winooski storm outfall, and that was $70,000 or $80,000 under budget. So we also have a good track record of using the money wisely.
That's great. That's great. I know the city has won some awards for some of the work, so talk about that.
Well, I think I should probably first of all mention that we got the big silver buckle for running equipment. There's an equipment rodeo that is a state and national competition.
Oh, okay.
And our own Preston, who is the superintendent of maintenance, won the equipment rodeo for the state of Oregon. That means, can you move a football with a backhoe and things like that?
Really?
Right? So he went up to the national level. We didn't win the nationals, but we won the statewide award. So we can run our backhoes and dump trucks and stuff, I would say, better than any other city in the state. And we've got the buckle to prove it.
That's great.
We also in 2022 won a SEDCOR award for our efforts in helping DCI recover from its fire and helping them find a place to stay and to function while they're working through their insurance claim.
Yeah.
And they've become a tremendous partner of this city. So winning that SEDCOR award showed our commitment to creative solution solving, and I must acknowledge the work of the late, great Denise Bacon. And she really fought for that agreement, and so that award, in my mind, is in her name as much as anyone else's.
Yeah.
We've become partners with that company, and when we had our flood, they played it forward and they let us have free warehousing to store all of our furniture while things were torn up.
Yeah.
And then another award that we won recently was the statewide CIS Insurance Brokerage Innovation Award. Only one city in Oregon wins that award every year. It was an innovation award for all of the reforms that we did, particularly some of these HR related awards. And so that one came in 2023.
Okay.
And I'm wondering what award we're going to win next.
Well, it sounds like you're going to win something. So tell me, what lies ahead for the city of Newberg?
I think having moved from a time of turmoil and having moved through a period of reform and change, now that we've achieved some of those goals, the focus now has to be on infrastructure, infrastructure, and infrastructure.
Yeah.
So we have to think about how much more road sections can we repair than the year before. Now we're doing 7 sections this year, but I want to try and do even more next year if I can stretch the dollars as far as I can. As mentioned already, in the first biennium, because yes, we also went to 2-year budget cycles while doing all this other stuff, we intend to begin the process of designing a new river street. That's going to be a large and complex project.
Yeah.
That indicates the sort of CIP projects, capital improvement programs, that we're going to be focusing on from here on. But we've now built a good, solid foundation to get the people's work done and make taxpayers' dollars go further than they ever have before.
Yeah.
And John, I can assure you of this, while our neighbouring cities are struggling with their budgets, and while they're laying people off, because when the sugar rush of the ARPA dollars came in and they used it perhaps unwisely, you're not going to see that sort of turmoil here. And we're working on trying to reduce our debt, not add more debt.
Yeah. One last question just came to me. I would be remiss if I didn't ask about the riverfront project. What's happening there?
So I cannot say that in the next 7, 8, 9 years anything is going to happen with the riverfront development unless somebody comes in and buys the property of the former mill site.
Okay.
We don't have enough capital dollars to begin to do some of the riverfront development plans that you all know about.
Mm-hmm.
For now, the dollars only stretch as far as River Street.
Okay.
And I'm never going to bite off more than this city can afford.
That's great. Well, thank you, Will.
I appreciate you, mate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.